In today's video number 15, we will discuss degrees of elasticities of demand. We learnt what is elasticity of demand. It is the percentage change in quantity demanded due to a percentage change in price. Right? Now, this elasticity of demand represented by ED ranges from 0 to infinity. What does this mean? This means that the value of the elasticity of demand can vary between 0 and infinity. So, what could be the possible values? If the extreme values are 0 and infinity, then ED can also be equal to 1. It could be just less than 1 or greater than 1. Isn't it? So all values which are less than 1 up to 0 and more than 1 up to infinity, all of them can be the measure of elasticity of demand. So let's keep this in mind as we go ahead to learn what are the degrees of elasticities of demand. Now, here, with change in price, the quantity demanded reacts in a different manner. So, ED also differs from commodity to commodity, isn't it? So that means it is not the same for all the commodities. So let's understand. The first one is perfectly elastic demand, which means that there is infinite demand at a particular price. The demand becomes zero with a slight rise in price. So what does this mean? This means that the elasticity of demand is infinite. Here we find graphically the demand curve is parallel to x-axis. See here the graph that shows price is constant, and if you draw the demand curve, it is parallel to x-axis. So that means for this price there are quantities Q1, Q2, Q3 demanded. Now mathematically if you see, elasticity of demand is given by delta Q by delta P into Q, isn't it? So what is this delta Q? That is Q1, Q2, you can find the difference. But here, price is kept constant, which would mean that this delta P becomes 0. So we have change in quantity into the original price by original quantity, but this delta P change in P is 0. So you cannot have a 0 in the denominator, isn't it? So that any number divided by 0 gives us the value infinity, right? The next degree is perfectly inelastic demand. Here, with change in price, there is no change in demand for the good. That means the elasticity of demand is 0. Here, the demand curve will be parallel to y-axis. That means demand remains constant at all prices. As you can see here in the graphical representation, whatever the price be, we represent price on the y-axis, no? So whatever the price be, the demand is the same, Q. So it is a parallel line to y-axis. Now let's see. Mathematically, elasticity of demand is given by change in quantity demanded by change in price into original price by quantity demanded. So now what is happening over here is there is no change in quantity. So here change in quantity is 0. 0 by change in price into price by quantity. So anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So here the elasticity demanded is demand is 0. So this is perfectly inelastic demand where the value of ED is 0. Now the third degree is unitary elastic demand. Now as the name tells us, unitary, unit, that is 1. So here ED will be equal to 1. When can ED be equal to 1? When the percentage change in quantity and percentage change in price both are equal, isn't it? So here the demand curve will be a straight line. Rectangular hyperbola, in other words. So if you look at the graph, we can see that since this is a straight line, here we can see the area under these 2 points. So at any point on this curve, ED will be equal to 1. Here also ED will be equal to 1. So at any price and quantity combination, ED will be found to be 1 because percentage change in quantity demanded will be equal to the percentage change in price. So mathematically, we find percentage change in quantity by percentage change in price to be equal. So this will give us the value of 1. So ED is equal to 1. The fourth degree is elastic demand. Elastic demand is when percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in price. So what will happen then? ED will be greater than 1. This implies that the demand curve is a flatter curve. Now if you look at this graph, we find the change in price, percentage change in price is very less when compared to the percentage change in quantity demanded. So what happens? It will become a flatter line. So demand curve is a flatter line, right? So when can we see this? We can see this for goods like luxury goods, substitute goods, expensive clothes, mobile phones, etc. So a slight fall in price would immediately increase their demand, isn't it? Now, inelastic demand is the fifth degree when percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. In that case, ED will be less than 1 and the demand curve will be a steeper curve. Now look at this graphically. You find a lot of change in price, but it is bringing a very slight change in price. So when the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price, then we call it an inelastic demand. Now we find this when products like necessities like food, low priced goods or salt, toothpaste, newspapers and all. Why? Because these form a very small fraction of the income of a consumer. So when there is a lot of change in price also, very little change in quantity is found. Now we said elasticity of demand changes from commodity to commodity and there are various degrees. So let's see what are the factors that affect this elasticity of demand. The first one is the nature of commodity. What is this? These are different types of commodities. We learned no commodity to commodity elasticity changes. So here there are commodities that are of necessity like salt, kerosene, matchbox, textbooks, vegetables. So these are some of the necessities. We cannot forego these things, though they are very low priced. In these cases, the elasticity of demand will be less than 1. Why? Because here the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. Then luxury goods like ACs, furniture, fashion garments. Here the elasticity is greater than 1 because any little change in price will bring about a big difference in the quantity demanded. So here quantity demanded will be greater than the change in percentage change in price. Then complementary goods like bread and butter, pen and ink, they have a moderate elasticity because see if you consider bread and butter, bread is more important for some. So even if you increase the price of the butter, there's not going to be much change. So for complementary goods, it's going to be moderate elasticity. Now the second factor is the availability of substitutes. Those goods with close substitutes like tea and coffee will have a greater elasticity. And goods without close substitutes like cigarettes, liquor, and all, they have less elasticity. The third factor is goods with multiple uses like the electricity. See, electricity can be put to many uses, not one, isn't it? Some of them are important uses and some of them are very small uses. So in this case, elasticity of demand will be greater than 1. But when the price of electricity goes up, then what happens is the activities that are of more use to us or which are more important will be given importance and the lesser importance will be kept aside. Right? So postponement of the use is the fourth factor. Here the elasticity will be greater than 1 because the consumption of such goods can be postponed. Example is demand for a house, let's say. So people can lower the demand for residential houses when interest rates on the loans are on the higher side. Then the fifth factor is income level. A higher income level group, for them the elasticity would be less than 1 because it doesn't matter if even if the prices are on the higher side. But for a lower income group, the elasticity would be greater than 1. Other factor is habit formation, like people who smoke cigarettes and liquor. These kind of things, the elasticity would be less than 1. Whatever be the price, they go for those goods. Then the seventh factor is price level. Higher level of price would mean higher elasticity because the demand will be higher. What are the examples that we can give over here is, you know, certain upper segments and lower segments of the people, the ratio tends to be low. Then time period. For a short period of time, the elasticity would be less than 1, and for long periods, the elasticity is more than 1 because here we have a long period. That means the time period is enough for a consumer to change his consumption habits. Finally, what are those goods which have more elasticity, more than 1? Goods with multiple uses, those with higher price tags, and goods that have a large number of substitutes will have a higher elasticity or are more elastic. Then those with less elasticity are those essential goods, goods with lower price tag, and goods that have no close substitutes. Now, finally, I'm going to show you how to remember this graph or the 5 graphs that are related to the elasticity of demand. Now, we learned that the graph that is parallel to x-axis is infinite elasticity, right? Then there is one graph that is parallel to y-axis where you find the elasticity to be 0. And in between them, if you draw a 45-degree line, then here ED will be equal to 1, right? And here, which is a flatter line, ED is greater than 1, and the one that is steeper, here you will find ED to be less than 1. So that's how you can remember all the 5 graphs, right?